All right, guys, welcome to our Unit 2 Quiz 2 study guide. Let's begin. I'm going to go ahead and do the evens. Those are the only ones you guys have to do, but I have included a few odd problems in case you want some extra practice, and their answers are included at the end. So the first thing we're going to start off with here on number 2 is combining functions. So they give us two functions here, f and g, and they tell us to find 3 times f of x minus 5 times g of x. And all we really need to do is just replace the f of x and the g of x expressions there with the equations that they give us. So f of x is equal to this, so I'm going to replace f of x with x cubed plus 2x. And I'm going to replace the g of x function up here with negative 2x plus 1. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and simplify. So distribute, and I get 3x cubed plus 6x. I'm going to distribute this negative 5 here. And that's going to give me negative, actually it's going to be positive 10x because a negative times a negative is positive. And then negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And then we can combine these two like terms here together to get 16x minus 5. All right, so that's number 2. Go ahead and take a look at number 4. So pretty similar to number 2. Matter of fact, even a little bit easier in my opinion. I guess there's a sneaky little thing on there that we've got to be careful with. So on this one, they give us our two functions, f and g, and they ask us to find f of x minus g of x. So we're going to replace f of x and g of x with the equations that they give us. F of x is 4x plus 3. G of x is x cubed minus 4x squared. Now the sneaky thing is we got to distribute this minus here into both of these terms. So that will turn into a negative x cubed plus 4x. Change both of those signs in that second set there. And then we want to go ahead and combine our like terms. So these two 4x's can make 8x. And then that's a positive 8x. I'm going to put the negative x cubed in the front because I like to put the ones with the biggest power in the front and the ones without any x's at all at the end. And there we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 6. All right, so this time they're asking us to do something a little bit different. They're asking us to actually evaluate the functions and then multiply them. So I'm looking for f of negative 2 times g of negative 2. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what f of negative 2 is. So my function for f of negative 2 is n squared minus 2. Okay. Now I'm going to plug the negative 2 in there for the n. And I'm going to simplify that, and I get 2. We're going to do the same thing with the g function. I'm going to plug negative 2 into the g function now. So the g function is 3n minus 2. And this time I'm going to plug the negative 2 in here. So f of negative 2 is 2, and g of negative 2 is negative 8, and all the way down we're multiplying these things. So in the end I have 2 times negative 8, which is negative 16 is my final answer. So my advice on these ones is to simplify this piece and this piece first, and at the end do whatever they're telling you to do. In this case it's multiply, but it could be add, subtract, or what have you. So there you guys have it. Let's go ahead and move on to number 8. So number 8 we have 4 h of negative 1 minus 3 times g of negative 1. All right, so we have 4. And then what we're going to do is we're going to replace the h function there with what h equals. H is equal to negative t cubed minus 5t. But this time I'm going to be plugging in a negative 1 into both of these t's here. So that's going to look like this. So we're going to go ahead and simplify this. Negative 1 to the third power is negative 1. but there's another negative in the front, which causes it to become positive 1. These two put together make plus 5. And we end up with 4 times 6, which is 24. Okay, we're going to repeat that process over here with our g function. We have 3, and then we have the g function. So the g function is simply 3t, and I'm going to be plugging negative 1 into the t there. Now negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, and 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Now this subtraction here, we're going to be subtracting both of those. So we had 4 times h of negative 1, and we found that was 24. We had 3 times g of negative 1, we found out that was negative 9. And now we're going to be subtracting those two things. So I've got 24 minus a negative 9. Double negatives make a positive, and we end up with 33 as a final answer there. So once again, simplify these pieces first and then do the operation at the end. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 10. And number 10 is a different type of problem. This is something that we talked about in lesson, I think it was 2.5, I think it was. This is a composite function where you're plugging one function into another one. So the way I told you guys to do this was to start by writing the inside function first. So that would be f of n equals n cubed minus 5n squared. Let's write that first. F of n is equal to n cubed minus 5n squared. The next thing I said to do on these types of problems was to write the outside function, which is g. Write the outside function, but when we do, we're going to leave blanks where the n is. So instead of g of n equals 3n plus 4, we have g of blank equals 3 blank plus 4. And what's going to happen is we're just going to drop this function on top down inside of these parentheses. So we have g of f of n, which is what we're looking for, is equal to 3 and n cubed minus 5n squared plus 4. And go ahead and simplify this. We're just going to distribute. And that gives me 3n cubed minus 15n squared, and then the plus 4. So that's number 10. Let's go ahead and move on to number 12. So for 11 through 13, I'm going to do number 12. But for 11 through 13, we're going to graph each function below using the graphs of f and g at the left. F is the parabola and g is the straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and label those now. So g is the straight line, and f is the parabola. All right. And I notice I have a little typo here. This says 13 through 15, but it's 11 through 13. My bad. All right. Let's go ahead and make the first thing you do whenever you graph these new functions. So I want to graph f of x minus g of x. We have two functions, f and g. I want to graph a new function, which is the result of subtracting these two functions. To do this, the first thing you're going to do is make a table. And your table needs to have a row for the x's. It needs to have a row for the f function. And then it needs to have a row for the g function. All right, so the x's, just go ahead and pick one of these shapes here. Go with the parabola for now. Actually, I'll go with the straight line. Just look at all these points I've given you. We're going to go and put the x value for each one of those. So I've got negative 3. The next point is negative 1. The next point is right here. It's positive 1. And the next point is right here. That's a positive 3. So those are all my x values. Now I want to put the y values that go with each of those. So on the g line, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight this in green really quick. We have these points that we just put x values for. Well, now I want to put the y values for each one of those. So when x equals negative 3, that's this point over here, the y value on the g function is 0. And right here, when the x value is -1, the y value is -1 for the g function. When the x value is 1, the y value is -2 for the g function. And then finally, when x equals 3, the y value is -3 for the g function. Now we're going to do the same thing, but for the f function, which I'll go ahead and do in red here. Now the f function is a parabola, and it has the same x values, -3, -1, +1, and +3, but the y values are very different. So when x equals -3, that's over here, the y value is 5 for the f function. When x equals -1, the y value on the f function is -3. When the x value is a +1, the y value is still a -3. And then finally, when the x value is 3, the y value is +5. All right, so that's just setting up the table. That's the first thing that we need to do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the row that we really want. I want to graph this function here, f of x minus g of x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this row here for f of x minus g of x. I'm going to take the f value and subtract from it the g value. So the f value minus the g value here would be 5 minus 0, which is 5. -3 minus a -1 would be -2. -3 minus a -2 would be -1. And then 5 minus a -3 would be 8. So we have, let me erase something here real quick, these points. Now, these are actually some points. So on our new graph. So when x equals -3, my new function, f of x minus g of x, has a y value of 5. So that's a point on the graph, -3, 5. When x equals -1, the y value of f minus g is -2. So -1, -2. When my x value is 1, the y value is -1. And then finally, when the x value is 3, the y value is 8. Now, to graph my function f of x minus g of x, I'm going to plot these 4 points and then connect the dots. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this coloring on this graph, though, just so it's not looking now. All right, so here we go. -3, +5, that's right here. -1, -2, that's right here. 1, -1, it's right here. And then 3, 8, way up here. And if I just connect these in the order that I put them together, it's going to look something like this. And that's it. Now, the shape of the graph is not so important to me as the points that you got. But I can tell from the shape whether your points are good or not. But there you guys have it. So the first thing you'll need to do is make a table. The next thing you need to do is find the table values for the one that you want. Then the last thing you do is turn those into some points and graph it. So I'll leave numbers 11 and 12 to you guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last view here. All right, so for this one, it's actually the same thing as the last one, but just less work. We don't actually have to graph anything. You just have to complete the table. So for instance, here we have f of x plus g of x. So f plus g would be 3. F plus g would be 1.5. F plus g would be 10.5. And then f plus g would be 39. I'll let you guys do 15. And I'll do some of 16, but I'll let you guys handle the rest. So f times g. So that would be f times g. That's -4. F times g. That's going to be 0.5 because 1 times 0.5 is just 0.5. I'll let you guys do these last two and see what you get. Okay. So you could do these ones and then this row, and that's that. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys, and we'll take our quiz on Wednesday, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.